Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I am so excited to be here. I'm here with my friend and my wedding florist. I feel like you're going to have to give yourself a little bit more context to that, but I'm here with Jes Gordon. She is like an amazing, amazing woman. I'm so excited that she's here and that she is going to chat with you about so many things related to body image, related to emotional eating. From her perspective, she is an event producer, a designer, an author, and a mentor. She's just so much. She literally saved my sanity when it came to my wedding. And I'm just so happy you're here. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I just, like I said, we got on our video and we were just chatting, and you were saying, about, and I was like immediately just like, let's record because why not? Right. And you were talking about, what I'm doing these days with emotional eating and why you find it so compelling to come on and chat. I want to hear more.
Yeah, it's really interesting because being out in California, it's so crazy because I go back and forth and you start to collect these friends of all ages. And I tend to gravitate to younger people because I have an enormous amount of energy, which is getting worse and worse as I get older. But I'm really finding that younger women are complaining a lot, almost about having menopausal bodies before they even have them. Like they have like stubborn belly fat or they have high cortisol levels. And for the first time in their lives, they are feeling very heavy and not like themselves. Like they have a layer of fat on them that they can't get rid of, even though all of these women in California are incredibly active. They're incredibly beautiful, even though they might not feel it. And we all go through that. But I find it very fascinating because here I am, a woman in real menopause, who understands how that feels. I've had the same, situation up and down. And I just think it's something that nobody talks about and nobody warns you of as being a woman when you go through these different valleys and peaks of your life. It does affect your weight. It does affect your appearance. It affects your skin. It affects everything, your cellular being. And I don't think anybody ever taught us how to connect the dots and how one thing can affect the other. And
Hmm.
it's almost like a puzzle. It's like you're playing Wordle every day with like, your fat cells.
And what have you, I know that you have your own journey, and I would love to hear it. I mean, not everybody can speak so intelligently about cortisol, about, that can make those connections. And I'm curious for you, what was your journey in understanding your body in that way? What has been your journey with that? If you've had a journey with emotional eating, if not, no, that's fine, but like, what is your relationship to your body, to how you nourish your body, how you move your body?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest problems, even though it works very well for me, is I am in a constant state of movement. I am one of those people that gets high off of endorphins. And when I don't have them, I go low.
Hmm.
And for what I do for a living, it's so incredibly physical that my body almost never recovers fully. I'm on a constant state of non recovery. It seems to work for me because I'm 54 years old and it seems to really work. But, we'll have a big job, and the day after, my team and I will wake up and we'll be like, whoa, we didn't eat yesterday. We worked really hard, but we can't get our pants on because
Yep.
our bodies are literally so exhausted, so swollen, retaining any of the water that it can get. It's just one of those situations where I am too active, so my body fights back sometimes. At different ages, your body reacts differently. So, like maybe in my 20s, by the afternoon, everything would shed out and everything's cool. But it's almost like a stereo, right? Like an equalizer on a stereo to find the perfect sound and harmony. And it's like, how often can we equalize? Especially when you have a physical job, that's, outside of the areas of being able to sleep.
And what has been your journey with your body image?
Mm. I've been really lucky because I was an athlete from the time I was extremely young. So for me, beauty equals strength, not not a certain look. It's more about strength. So if my body was strong and it's performing well, like even if I'm going to like Orange Theory or the gym or something and I'm killing it, to me that's a beautiful body.
Definitely.
Versus one that looks a certain way. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm a woman that, like, if I look heavy in something, or we've got neck wrinkles or something like that, I'm very aware of it. um I think a strong body is a beautiful body no matter what size. Strength is beautiful.
100%. But for you specifically, do you feel like when you don't feel like you're in your body in the way that you define as healthy, as making you feel beautiful, do you find that impacts your confidence at all? Do you find that impacts your ability to, obviously you're professional, like you're not going to, take a day off and lay in bed if you don't feel good in your body, but do you
Right.
find that it impacts your self-esteem, not self-worth, which are two very different things. I know, and that's one of the big things I try to instill in all the women that I work with, is that you're always worthy, but your self-esteem, that's something that can, you know, um, can wane or rise, depending on what your specific measures are for your own feeling good.
It's so funny because you go through so many different renditions of this. In answer to your question, absolutely. I have moments that I might avoid going out to like a dinner or something with friends because I'm just not feeling top fit, or
Mhm.
knowing that that dinner with friends is going to tip the scale over in the way I don't want it to. Or I think every woman or any person is guilty of this, going out with women friends that happen to be gorgeous and have amazing bodies. It's very hard to put yourself in that pool, feel confident, still feel like who we are as rock stars, and still feel beautiful in our own way. It's very hard. We are human, and that's what happens. One of my best friends happens to be 6 foot tall. She looks like Claudia Schiffer. We walk down the street, everybody stares at her, and here I am, like walking next to her. Um, at the end of the day, something great my mom taught me is you have to offer more than being beautiful in this world. You have to offer so much that people feel it off of you when they walk into a room. They don't just see you, they feel you. So, in answer to your question, of course, there's days that I want to hide because I'm not feeling great. I'm not going to go to the beach this weekend because I'm not bikini ready at the moment. But on the other part of it, I know I have a lot more to offer than that.
I love that. And I think that to that point, you can be 6 foot, look like Claudia Schiffer. And if you don't have that piece of it, that
Exactly.
self worth piece of it, that I don't, my whole worth and my whole value is not my looks and my thinness or whatever, you're not you're not going to be happy, you're not going to feel worthy either. So it really is the, that combination of what you said, which is the non-physical worthiness and esteem, but something that, and I think one of the big messages of this podcast is to really, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I know that you share this value and this ideology, is that it is both though, and
Mhm.
that it there is value in investing your time, your resources, your prioritization in the physical piece of it, because there is, a narrative now in society, like anti-diet culture, like, body positivity, which I really like, but not as a bypass to what, not as a bypass to some of the work and some of the discipline and um some of the things that you need to do in order to really have a holistic, well-rounded, authentic self-esteem.
It's so funny that you bring that up because body positivity, for somebody in my generation, you'll see people walking down the street and they're wearing very tight clothing, very scantily clad, and they might be a very heavy person. And part of me is like, right on, own it, walk down the street. But then the other part of it is like, you know what? It's not healthy to be that heavy. It's just not. It's not heart healthy. And at the end of the day, when they go home, do they feel this way?
Exactly.
Right? Are they just walking the walk and not talking the talk? The other thing is, do you know a term like sexy ugly? Like back in the
Yeah.
day, okay, so when we were young, we would fall in love with rock stars like Mick Jagger, ugliest man in the world. Ugliest, okay? By the definition, the sexiest man in the world. I love things that look different and intriguing that are not typical. What is the definition of beauty? Is it a Kardashian? Is it, to me, that term sexy ugly is so intriguing because it's somebody that you're very attracted to for so many reasons because they have their own look. They've created their own style. They have charisma. They have confidence. They have sex appeal. Let's not forget about sex appeal. Where has that gone? It
I
doesn't exist
mean,
anymore.
that's a whole other conversation considering
Right,
there are some narratives out there that that is totally not even needed in the world anymore.
right.
So, I don't know. Like this is the first time in my life, and I'm 40, I'll be 44 in January. This is the first time in my life that I actually feel like an older generation.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in the past, like three, maybe COVID, I
Yep.
guess. And maybe
Mhm.
there is a jump between 38, 39, and 44. And,
There
in
is.
general, I mean,
Yeah.
there definitely is in as far as the body stuff goes. You talk about menopause, like I'm fully in like
Perry.
Perry, yeah. I'm like
Yeah.
waking up in night sweats, like,
Oh, man.
and I look at my aura ring too, and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. This makes
Yeah.
sense. And it's the same thing also with the body stuff that you talk about. And ironically, and this is something also that I think is really important to say, because you did say you're always go, 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 is that it isn't always doing more and working out harder and working out more intensely that is beneficial for the movement.
Right.
Sometimes it actually is, and I've noticed for myself, even though like I really want to go do like a run, I'll be like, I'm just gonna take a 40-minute stroll, like with some hills, and like get like that cliche, like sweat and breathe hard, like you're talking on the phone with your friend, and like a little sweat under your armpits, like that. But I feel like that's been so valuable for me as I've gotten older and as I've like you want to maintain a certain body image that for me feels like me, like
Right.
my authentic self,
Right.
right? And where I'm not, like you had mentioned, or body positivity ambassadors maybe go home and in their private life don't necessarily feel
Right.
that great in themselves. I want to, and it's an adjustment, in a lot of ways, from physically, your physical movement, and also the way that you navigate your boundaries and your energy and things like that. And so I'm curious, do you focus on that at all? Like boundaries, energy? I know because you're like an event producer, like
Yeah.
bi-coastal, was, I literally would not have survived my wedding without you producing my entire wedding. So that's all.
For me, I am working on that currently, like as we speak. I got really into Orange Theory when I came out here, and I was going like crazy. Like 5 times a week, I was doing like the running portion, the rowing portion, the lifting portion. Now, what I have done is like today, I actually just did a lift class, which is very rare for me because I have this weird stigma in my head. Jess, you're not really getting a workout. That's not true. And I'll be honest, I'm not totally convinced. I'm still on the fence because for me, unless I'm walking out dripping wet, I didn't do something. Now, I also use high activity for focus because I was ADHD way before it became popular in the 70s, and I refused to take medication for it. And what we found is because I was an athlete as a young girl, I was able to focus in school as long as I worked out before I went to school. My mom
Mm.
figured it out. My mom was brilliant this way. She always found loopholes to find my way. She taught me it's not how smart you are, it's how you are smart.
Ugh, your
And
mom sounds like a freaking
it's delicious.
dream,
She's
honestly.
delicious.
I mean, I have so many, I wanna hear more of this, but I've like, in so many of my, my courses, so much of, like, what permanence for weight loss or for any behavior change is looking at your belief systems that you got from your role models,
Yes.
and it's so huge unlearning those. I do not have the same role models as you, it's probably why I'm so good at what I do.
Yeah, wow,
Um,
yeah.
but, that's a beautiful, beautiful message. Beautiful.
It is, and this is a woman who is horrible with nutrition, absolutely horrible to this day. She's 83 years old and drinks orange soda and eats gummy bears. Like, she was a jazz musician. She was not domestic at all. Um, I didn't have a good role model nutritionally, but I had a great role model emotionally. And that kind of speaks to what you do, right? Like, this
Well,
emotional connection.
yeah, but what's interesting is that I had a role model who was, like, obsessed with eating healthy all the time, and you would say was nutrition, but the emotional part was the
Ah,
exact opposite of you, and also, I mean, I wouldn't say exact, but, like, it was kind of opposite, and the value system was placed on your physical appearance, actually.
so we should do a study one day, because I will tell you, when my brother and I both went off to college, it was the first salads we ever had. We discovered salad bars, and we both came out of college vegans, gluten free. Well, I was gluten free since I was a kid, but we that wasn't forced upon us. We ate all the sugar cereals. We ate all the disgusting stuff as kids because that's what we lived on. But when we went out on our own, it was almost like we did the opposite that most kids do, where they discover the fun food. It was healthy food for us. It was great.
I mean, that is so interesting because it just goes to show you, and this is the same thing, like, it's not about the food, it's
Right.
about it's about the motivation, the belief systems around the food that you had. And
Hmm.
so even when I work with women now, they have this belief system that salad is a diet food, and I have to be like, "But it's not.
No.
Like, it's not like, you're not on a diet if you eat salad."
Right.
It's like it's really just about, and now you still also, right, choose
Oh,
to eat, healthy, high nutritional value type stuff.
that's all. I mean, especially coming out to California, because I can eat the way that I want to out here, which is great. Um,
Which is like
so
veggie heavy and like nutrition heavy and
yes.
like, just seeking that. You don't feel like you're doing it because you're on a diet or because
No.
you're right. Exactly.
Yeah. I've never been on a diet. I'll be
Yeah.
totally honest. I might find myself eating less or getting the chocolate out of the house. I do have a sweet tooth at the end of every night, and this probably goes into something else that you talk a lot about. Sometimes I want a reward. And I do sometimes see, food as a reward. Sometimes Joe and I, specifically, my business partner, we won't eat all day on a
Mhm.
job. So we reward ourselves after the job is done. And we do affiliate that with a great dinner or like something yummy. And I think that's healthy to a certain extent, but I can see how it goes overboard for certain people.
100%. The line of going overboard is when it's a reward. It's your only reward.
Right.
If it's your only reward, also if it's your escape.
Ah,
Right?
yep.
If maybe there's like, you and Joe, I know, probably talk about how stressed you are, and you intentionally, it's an intention that you
Yes.
go out and that you have this meal, and you also probably enjoy it and savor it. There's not guilt. You might walk out and be like, and
Well,
say, "Oh my god, maybe I overdid that, whatever." But, like, everybody does that, and I actually try to teach my clients to, like, be okay with that. Like, that's a sensation that you have to realize is not a failure. You didn't just binge, like, you just ate too much, and just
mhm,
that's okay. But the reward thing, I think, is fine, as long as it's not a compulsive reward,
mhm,
right? There's a difference between a compulsive reward and a intentional reward where you're awake to the entire experience that you're having, and it's a gratitude for yourself. It's
mhm,
not a punishment to yourself.
exactly.
Or like an escape or something that's like, "Oh, I would just wanna escape all my stress, what happens, and I just deserve this," and, like, I'm not even gonna be intentional about what I'm choosing to eat. I kind of just wanna shut off
Mhm.
and numb, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a drug addict. It's like
Yeah.
anybody that takes any kind of substance to shield away from any kind of emotions that they're having.
Mhm.
I'm probably the only one of my friends during COVID where after being sick, I became the healthiest I'd ever been. I was so in control of every move, everything I was doing through the five senses, not just eating. Because I finally had the time in my life. I mean, I was under an enormous amount of stress because obviously our business, shut down. But it was the first time in my life to really take care of Jess on all levels. I mean, I've had my company since I was 18 years old.
That's
So,
so interesting though. Why do you feel, and I feel like this is for so many people, but why do you feel like COVID gave you that permission to do it?
well, because I had nowhere else I had to be. I mean, it was really just a very simple thing. It wasn't even I just didn't have a full day for once, you know?
Okay. So it was actually like, I'm not Beyonce. I don't have like, I can't do 2 days in like 24 hours, basically.
Right.
Right? Like,
Yeah,
you basically just, and so it's interesting because I released an episode once this airs, it'll be a couple weeks ago, about self-care and like the kind of the how to have self-care be generative and create almost what you're saying in your day to day. Do you feel like now that things have turned back on and are more normal as far as the time of the day, do you find that you can still bring that attitude to your life now? Is that something that you've taken with you from COVID?
absolutely. In fact, it's part of my reason for being bi-coastal because
Mm.
we don't work a ton out here. And so I have to just have a lifestyle here. That's what I'm doing. I mean, we work mostly on the East Coast. We do some things out here, but in between those, I'm a California girl. I'm just having a wonderful life. It's
What are
great.
you doing out there?
I don't even know.
What part of California are you?
I'm in Marina del Rey near Venice Beach. So I'm next to the airport so I can get back and forth very quickly. But I wanted an option during slower times because our business is different now. It's fewer and further between, but they're bigger projects. So, which is great. But I'm a person that I do better when I'm busy. I need the productivity. So I just figured, while things are kind of mellow, I could just go have a nice life out here, which is just kind of what I'm doing. I go on the beach, I work out, I take bike rides, I walk 7 miles a day with the dog. It's My dog's lost 9 pounds since we moved here.
I love that.
Yeah, it's
That
nice.
sounds amazing. I'm
Yeah,
so happy for you. I feel like that's huge.
it is. And then I'm not going to lie, I get bored. I'm a little sleepy and I'm about to do a whole stint on the East Coast for a long time. So that'll give me my fix and hopefully I'll get exhausted there and then I'll come back and like rest up a little bit. I'm kind of just exploring the other creative sides of myself. I think something that I've realized, even though my industry's become very, very overpopulated, it's also such a small world and there's such a big world out there. And when you are a creative, there's so many other things you can do, and I like to tap into that. So I'm taking the time in between projects and I'm taking on projects that are pretty big and pretty challenging, which I also really like. Um, and I'm kind of just self care is definitely becoming something. I'm paying attention. I am aware of my sleep patterns, like we discussed. I am aware of what it's like being on hormone replacement versus not being on hormone replacement. I had a hysterectomy when I was 47. So I
Okay.
was thrown into menopause and they put you on hormone replacement as soon as you're out.
Mhm.
And then 7 years later, they took me off completely. And I noticed that that wasn't good. So now I have been kind of dabbling with holistic medications and biosynthetic hormones,
Okay.
which I actually am kind of really interested in. And you have to make an investment in yourself and decide whether or not you want to go down that road. But I do have somebody that I work with that has been really interesting. And that's something I would have never done for myself before, or as options. I always listen like a good girl. Like a doctor tells me one thing, I'm like, okay, now I'm listening to my body. And
Amazing.
my body's going to tell me what I need at this point.
100%.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to so are you eating are you I'm just for out of curiosity, are you working more to increase estrogen naturally?
Yes, I was doing that nutritionally, and it was going pretty well. I was, eating lots of soy and edamame and all that kind of stuff. The problem is when you've had a hysterectomy, you have no estrogen at all in your body. Everything's gone, testosterone, everything.
Yep.
So I do take a sublingual kind of, troche kind of situation under my tongue. I just started a couple weeks ago of a biodynamic kind of hormone mix, which is like estradiol,
Yep.
testosterone. I'm taking some progesterone at night to help me get those 6 hours of sleep because that's a problem for me. I'm up all night long.
Yeah, so the circadian rhythm thing, especially when you're taking estradiol, which is the pure form of
Yes,
estrogen, yeah. Have you heard of something called cortisol steal?
yes, yes,
So that's a risk. That's not that's a risk, but that is there's like it is so good that you are in California with the slower lifestyle, focusing on the sleep and focusing on the self-care because cortisol can steal estrogen.
yes. Luckily, my cortisol was not high. I did
Perfect.
all my blood work, and I'm on a supplement that helps balance out all of that. It's just a regular vitamin you can buy on Amazon,
Oh,
so that's kind of interesting. And, I was finding, I thought it was a myth, but a lot of the issues when you are in menopause and you are a middle aged woman, and there is that layer of fat, no matter what you eat, no matter what you don't drink, it's there because it just comes. And, you can embrace it to a certain point, but if it is hurting like the quality of your confidence and things like that, it's okay to explore,
100%. A
right?
100%. Yes.
We're
Yeah.
not breaking any rules.
And I think it's also really important and totally valid to acknowledge that you want to put energy and effort into finding a solution for that.
Absolutely. That's the thing. You have to love yourself enough to know that you need to fight for yourself. That's a job,
Exactly.
right? That is your full-time job. You need to fight for yourself. Even though you can hire professionals like yourself or anybody, at the end of the day, you're going to do it. Like you got to do it. You can get advice, you can get the pills, you can, whatever it is. At the end of the day, and I say this, listen, we're all responsible for our own happiness as well. Getting a husband isn't going to fix it. It could add to it, but like at the end of the day, you are completely responsible for who you are. Me as a creative, I'm responsible for finding inspiration. Some people are like, oh, how come you're not doing this? And I can't answer, oh, because I don't feel inspired. That's my fault. That's my fault.
Yep.
The first day I went to Orange Theory, I worked out and they said, what do you think of it? And I said, it felt a little easy. And the coach looked at me, he goes, that's on you. And I was like, oh,
Mm,
shit. I was like, right on. And then I elevated my performance. He was right. It was on me.
that I mean, I really could not have said it better myself, and I'm so happy that we got to this place in the conversation because I say that all the time that you are responsible, radical responsibility when you can accept that as something that's a that's a gift.
Right.
Like pressure is a privilege, Billie Jean King.
Yes.
It's like the same thing. It's a privilege to have this body and it's a
Hmm.
privilege to have this life. And at the end of the day, like you said, you can, you can have every intention. You could do your vision board. You could really want it. You could really want it so badly. You can collect tons of memes on your Instagram saved folder and like tons of carousels with like the why I got here and this is this reason why you have this issue. But if you don't invest
Yep.
in the solution for yourself and you don't look at your life and you say where am I investing in other areas energetically or financially that I am spending this time, this money. I am investing a currency, whether it's time or money in something else, and you don't change it,
Hmm.
then it's on you. And then
It's
if you
unfair.
do invest, which you did, you're responsible for the results. Obviously, you want to, like Orange Theory, you invested in the program because you liked the program,
Yeah.
right? But you have to get the results and you have to show up and amp up the way that you're showing up to it. And that's such an important message for people of all ages, not just people
Yes.
who are 50s, 40s. Start that when you're in your 20s, to start viewing your life radically responsibly. I feel for myself, I feel blessed
Hmm.
that because of my upbringing, I did really have that mindset from
Hmm.
my late teenage years. I was like, I am the only one, and I reread my journals actually from like I found them like from
Oh my God.
2099, and there's actually words in there that are like, I know that I am responsible to make myself happy. I know that my life is up to me. All these things.
Hmm. That is the first thing. Even in marriage, it's so funny. I mean, I am no longer married, but one of the best things you can do when you're fighting is to take the blame. Honestly, because at the end of the day, the sooner you take the blame for certain things, the sooner you can move on. The sooner you can forgive yourself, the sooner you can forgive the other person or the other person can forgive you. I definitely have that inside of me that I know if I'm acting irresponsibly, physically eating, over using my body, I blame myself. And then
Well,
I
I
feel
let's say you take responsibility for yourself.
I
Like
take,
blame, I
yeah,
feel like is a hard word.
blame is a hard word, but it's
Yeah,
not to take it. I
yeah,
mean,
true, true.
I'm still Jess. I'm still standing here.
Yeah, yeah.
I blame myself, but I'm still going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to do what I can to rectify. I think we're all have levels. What's interesting to me is going back to Orange Theory, how many people don't use their memberships and they pay for it every month?
Mhm.
That blows me away. Like knowing that would be in the back of my brain, knowing that I was paying $225 a month and that I went once. That blows me away. There's so many people in the world that do that. It's terrifying.
I know.
It's terrifying.
But
Right.
somehow they do it. Like somehow they'll spend, like, you add that up, what is that? Like $2,500 a year or
Yeah,
like more? I
yeah,
feel like, and then they'll find something that's, $500 or something like that, and they're like, I can't invest in this. I don't have the money for it. And it's like, but
exactly.
where else are you leaking out your money? Like, are you going to Taylor Swift in Paris? Like,
Right.
do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that was a couple grand?
Right.
I always say that it's like I mean, you don't have to do like the crazy things, but you should view yourself and your own goals and your own desires. And if you really want to feel a certain way, look a certain way, you need to show up to those actions and to those day to day activities and those choices,
Right.
and you need to make them.
Mhm.
Like, you need to make them, you need to invest in them. And it's like, if you want your life to be a certain way, you need to take that leap of faith. If you know that you have something that if you invest in it, it's going to give you returns
Yep.
and it's going to work for you, you invest in it. So there are so many people that are scared to, they'll be like, this is the right thing for me. This is this is going to, I think this might work for me, but they just won't invest in it because they don't see the results yet. And
They
it's like
do.
belief takes you.
It's the patience too that a lot of
Yes.
us don't have. So that's the other thing, like I kind of wanted to discuss. Like, listen, back in the day, I could change my diet for 3 days and my body would drastically change. If I needed to lose 5 pounds, I knew that I could lose 5 pounds, probably like in 2 days, to be honest.
Mhm.
That changes. And it might take a month instead of like a few days, but you can't quit after the few days because you didn't see the results so fast. Things do take a little bit longer as you grow longer in the tooth. It's kind of that's the way, and you have to take the journey. And I don't know, I just think that there's such a great way to be well rounded in this world, and I love that you're an advocate for that. You're like, stop counting all these things, have that piece of pizza. Oh, look at me, I'm having a glass of wine. You know, I love that because a lot of people see things in black or white. They don't see it as a multi level journey. And it is. And it's more exciting that way anyway. It's like either, you're either starving yourself or you're eating. That's not true. It's just regulating and like going back to like the balancing and all that kind of stuff and seeing what other kind of elements are affecting your progress, the sleep and the all that kind of stuff.
Your environment, your relationships,
Yes.
your energy, what I always say, like, you don't just metabolize food, you metabolize people,
Yes.
you metabolize energy. You metabolize the energy of the place you're in,
Yes.
of the people you're around. And and to your point about patience, it's so true. I mean, also when you're younger, your brain is different. Like, you are thinking in very micro levels. So it's like, I lost 5 pounds. Do I remember how bad I felt when I bounced back and gained 8 pounds like a week and a
Right.
half later when I did that at 25, at 23? Probably not. But
Right.
as you get older, you just ground more into seeing, you know, you have a more global way of looking at life rather than like a very local way of looking at life.
Exactly.
And I teach people that in my program too. I actually have a local, regional, and global strategy that I teach people about actually, and I use those words exactly because I do think that it's when you get to the place of being able to make your choices from a global place because
Yep.
you factor in a lot of different things and a lot of different but you only can do that when you value yourself on a very deep level
Hmm.
and you understand that sometimes the immediate gratification of something, whether that's a food or losing 5 pounds, it doesn't trump the long term, um self-esteem and the long term, like, really feeling good in your
Yeah.
body, because the highs and the lows of it that nets out to like chaos. To me, it doesn't net out to
Totally.
feeling grounded. Yeah, so maybe I was 5 pounds lighter for this event, but like, if I look at it holistically, it's kind of chaos.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you want a situation where it's not chaos and that maybe it's not as sensational of results right away,
Hmm.
but you have to just keep, stay the course, do the work, and it's not even that hard, honestly. Once it becomes your routine,
Hmm.
it's just regular. And I think that people aren't comfortable with that. They're not comfortable, like, to what you said about people wanting to be black and white. There is a subconscious, um what's the word I'm looking for? Like, there's a subconscious, like, um relaxation or like sense of safety and
Yeah.
comfort in extremes and in black and white.
Yeah, and I think, this is a world of I want it now. You can order DoorDash or Uber Eats and you want everything right now. And the younger generations are being raised that they can get whatever they need like right now. So why can't they lose 5 pounds right now? They'll take Ozempic or they'll take, whatever it is, or a cleanse, a 5-day cleanse, which I think is, I can't stand those. But
The worst.
it is. It's really an interesting culture. What I love about it is when you're taking care of yourself, you almost have a best kept secret. And there is a veneer to you that people respect and love. Like, this is so funny because you're going to laugh. I'm watching Summer House for the first time. I hadn't watched it and I'm addicted to it. And there's one of the people in the house becomes sober after he was like a total jackass, drunk, crazy. And I'm watching the season where he's sober. He is so desirable as a person all of a sudden because he's taking his own path while all of his roommates are drunken maniacs. But he's enclosed almost like a little butterfly, like ready to like kind of like blow out. It's this beautiful thing when you're on a path to achieving something that makes you feel wonderful about yourself. It's like a little Christmas present, like all bowed up inside of you. And it gives you this relaxation, like you were talking, and it gives you
Exactly.
this aura of like kind of just being a better person.
It's the authentic self confidence that
Yeah.
people are looking for, that they think they're going to get in a result. And
Yes.
that's why I always say results is not confidence. Like,
Right.
result is not healing. Having a result is not true confidence. It's just not. Like, you can lose your weight like 5, 20, 30, whatever. But there's an energy of somebody where you know that that's what they're focused on, right? And that's they're focused on their safe macro count, their safe meal plan, their safe this, and they're like, okay, I'm doing it, and then I'm gonna get to a result, and all of a sudden I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna be the butterfly. And it's like, no, if you weren't doing the work that it takes to get to be the butterfly the whole time, and you were doing the work that it takes to be like something else, you're
Right.
not going to finish that and become the butterfly. Like, it's just
Exactly.
not going to happen. The butterfly unfolds from a process, and you
Hmm.
need to be in that process, and then you unfold into what you just described. And people almost want the verified evidence of that before they commit to the non-sensational stuff that you have to kind of invest in, whether that is investing in a solution, or whether it's a person, or whether it's just, and then it's your just day-to-day rituals and routines that don't have to be that rigid either, right? Like, I'm sure there are some days where you think you're going to do this and then you end up doing this in a different
Oh
way.
yeah.
Like, you need to have a malleability and agility to your mindset as well, right? Like, there are some days that I think I'm going to do a 6 mile run, and then I end up doing a yoga class and not a run, or like a 15-minute walk, or 20 minutes. Like, I will, what I will do is I'll say to myself, I thought I was going to do a 6 mile run, but what my takeaway was that my body's ready for activity today. So
Right.
I thought that I was going to do a 6 mile run, but if I'm being truthful, that's not really what's best for me right now. But I'm not going to just bail on the activity altogether because I can't do the 6 mile run. I'm
Right.
going to be creative, and I'm going to find a different thing to do. And I
Hmm.
think that's what people need to understand. Like, they need to learn the skill of doing that, of being able to adjust.
They need to pivot because I agree. Like I've had situations too where I realize that I'll be really honest. Like I have a bunch of friends that might want to go to brunch, and I already know I don't want to eat that meal. I just don't. I know that there's going to be a ton of things there that I already know myself that I'm going to have, and I don't want it that day. I just don't. And I also know that maybe I don't have the strength that day to not partake, or to partake in it only an inch and I'll go a mile. I easily say to my friends, listen, why don't I meet you after and we will go for a walk? I would love to see you because that's the main reason why I wanted to go to the brunch anyway. But I got to be honest, I don't trust myself going to brunch today. Knowing yourself and being honest with yourself is so key. And as you grow older, I just want to tell everybody it gets easier. And your friends accept you for it too. Your friends are
Oh,
like, I dig that. Your friends are like, I totally get it, Jess. You don't want to eat a 4,000 calorie meal at 11 a.m. on a Sunday because you want to do other things, and you don't want to just sit there and not eat. I'm just going to forego the brunch. It doesn't interest me that day. It's not a positive thing for me, but I'm going to meet you right after so we can go walk around.
that is literally what I teach the women I work with.
Hmm.
And you clearly, but look, let's circle back to where we started, the belief system and the role model that you had with your mom, to like focus on you, that you're enough, that like always focus on like your inner self and trust that person, right? Like, you had that growing up. A lot of the women I work with did not have that. So I had to grow that in myself too. But
Hmm.
that skill is so key.
It's
And I'm
key.
so glad that you said that. And it, maybe it gets easier, but I have to tell you, I have women of all ages that I work with. They're women your age, my age, that can't even, like, that would be very difficult for them to do. And that's something that we work on, is communicating that, trusting that you're not going to be exiled from your friend group. Like, it's not a failure, or it's not embarrassing, really. And that's why it all starts and ends with yourself, with your belief system about yourself, and building that up and unlearning all of the negative, or non-skillful, or just not helpful belief systems that you were raised with so much, or that you got that were downloaded into your psyche from wherever you learned it from. But that skill of just knowing yourself, like you said, and being able to say, I'm not going to go.
Mm.
Or, going and sitting there. And I think this is another skill. But if you know yourself that you're not going to be able to do this,
Yeah.
I have been able to get to a place where I'll be like, I'm just not eating. Right. I'm
I
going to
don't
order a
want
coffee.
people, right. Like, I don't want to make people uncomfortable. And that's the
Yeah.
first thing they're like, oh, but what I noticed too, and sorry to interject, but
Yeah.
what happens is sometimes you change history where they're like, you know what? We're not even going to ask her to brunch. We're actually going to go on a hike with her. We're going to ask her, like, when we do something, right, that she would want
Yes.
to
Exactly. Like the thing that people need to understand is that we come from such a society, especially as women, to be people pleasers and also to just acquiesce and and just go with whatever's put in front of us. But exactly like you said, with your ability to change the trajectory of how people connect to you and are there for you, and the quality of connection and the activity binder that you can, and the activity vehicle that you can have with your friends, people are more than happy
Yes.
to do things for you
Yes.
if you let them know how to do them for you. And
Exactly.
that's also one of the biggest things that I work with women with relationships, right? You talk about relationships. It's like, you know, that is relationships not going to make you feel good about yourself or connected. You need to have the skill of being able to do that,
Hmm.
to create it, right? And you're right, like people will be happy to adjust for you because you matter to them. And that's enough. It's not because you're eating food with them.
Right. It tests your friendships a little bit. You kind of see who your real friends are.
Yep.
And, those are the same friends too. Like, if there's a birthday celebration, like, yeah, I am going to go. And it's great. It's once in a while. But, my friends know now for a fact that I'm just not a brunch person. They already know that. They know it'll take up the rest of my day, and I don't want to deal with that. Yeah, it's really interesting. What I marvel at is I watch these moms, like, in the park with their kids, all these snacks, like, all over the place, right? Or people that get married to men that eat a lot of stuff. And I remember when I was married, I was heavier because my husband ate a lot and I was eating with him. And I definitely have noticed that because I'm single, I'm able to really lasso any kind of eating behavior I want. I don't have to be accountable or have things in the house that are a trigger for me. And so I really kind of marvel at these people that deal with that as well.
You're so right. And I have a lot of the women I work with have
Okay,
that
yeah.
lifestyle where they're
Mhm.
married to partner, or they have partners who are not healthy. And there's a lot of that, learning how to become interdependent and
Right.
realizing some codependent dynamics that are at play, to no one's fault, but like just might happen or whatever. And recognizing those. And this is the boundary work, that you really have to do. And I'm not saying it's easy at all.
Yeah.
But Brian definitely, and eats, he eats healthy, but like he
Right,
definitely, there are definitely times where I'm like, I'm not eating this. I mean, even
right.
so, this is such a good example. We were invited on Friday night to pizza
Okay.
with um a birthday, like happy hour, and then pizza afterwards. Okay.
Oof.
Okay, but people who follow me on Instagram, or you might know that I do pizza on Sunday nights. Okay,
That's
I have
great.
pizza on Sunday nights. That is like my thing, and I look forward to it. And it's like I'm excited for it, and I love it. Now I can't. Oh, this past week I ended up eating way too dense and heavy over the weekend. My in-laws were here, so actually I didn't have pizza Sunday night, but it was challenging for me to make that choice. I had
Okay.
to go to my higher self and be like, "You're gonna feel gross. Like it's just not a good
Right.
idea." But I doubled down on the fact that I'm having pizza next week. So when
Right
we were
on.
invited, when we were invited for this pizza, I said to Brian, I was like, just so you know, we're going to go to the happy hour, but I'm not eating this pizza on Friday night because that is not the pizza that I want. And I really want to have this pizza on Sunday. So
Right
we're
on.
not having pizza on Friday night. And
Uh-huh.
he was like, okay, we're not going to have pizza on Friday night. Of course. Yeah.
That's
And so
awesome.
yeah, like I was into, I'm connected to myself enough to know how to make myself feel good
Yep.
And then by extension, I'm able to share that from an unapologetic but collaborative place. Um, and that's it. You have to have that self awareness to be able to do it.
What are your thoughts on alcohol, actually?
In what way?
Like ingesting it. I mean, like, so all of the research and everything, particularly women my age, who happen to probably love wine more than anybody in the world, they're just like, that's the number one problem for women, why they're not losing weight, why they feel heavy. Like, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, good question. I'm gonna grab my computer charger
Okay. Like, okay.
right here.
I realize that my cup looks really big. I'm sorry. The
Oh
huge
no,
cup.
I don't notice it. It's all good. My thoughts on I'm not trying to avoid this question. My thoughts on alcohol. Okay, so yes, white wine is definitely more white wine is definitely sugary. I noticed that I'd say about 2-3 years ago, I started having trouble sleeping when I
Yeah.
had white wine,
Oh, yeah.
actually.
Yeah, the heart palpitations and the sweats and all that
So
shit.
in my 30s, my mid 30s, I started getting panic attacks in my which is a whole other conversation about the healing I had to do around that. Probably when I turned like 35, all of this unconscious stuff that was crazy, just different conversation. But at that point, I couldn't drink red wine.
Okay.
The tannins were very activating for me. I also couldn't drink caffeine.
Mm,
Now I drink it again. I healed myself in this area. I don't get panic attacks anymore. But then I couldn't drink red wine and I only drank white wine. And so then when I turned 40, 41, I started to not be able to sleep. Like it was
yeah.
insane. Like I just couldn't sleep. So to answer your question, I think it depends on, it's not in a vacuum. And I think it's all about the quantity.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And I think it's also about the, I think it's also about your like honestly, it is universal. Like I mean, not universal. It is specific to the person
Absolutely.
and like the way that they metabolize alcohol. But white wine and its sugar content is definitely high. And if you drink more than like like if you're drinking 3 glasses of wine a night, like not great. If you're
Mm,
drinking like if you've one day a week where you end up having 2 glasses of white wine, are you going to maybe feel it for 36 hours afterwards? Yeah, probably. But I would say that if you balanced it out within the next, and I call this like my arc system, like
yeah,
if you balance it out well within the next 36 hours or so, 48 hours, within 48 hours, you'll be fine. If you continue to have it,
right.
it's going to be harder for you to metabolize it. I mean, and definitely as you get older, that's true. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't say in a vacuum, it's like a villain.
So let me ask you, when you say you're going to a happy hour,
Yeah.
like what are you going to eat
Oh,
after? Like what do you like, because like I find like if I went to a happy hour and hadn't eaten or whatever and I have like a drink, I actually drink tequila.
yeah.
That's kind of my
That's
thing.
it's clean. Yeah.
It's clean, but like sometimes I'll make really intense choices after. Like I'll get hungry, because I'll metabolize it really fast. And maybe if I said I wasn't going to have pizza, maybe all of a sudden I would.
So that's a brain muscle, right?
Okay.
So that would never happen for me.
Okay. Got it.
And maybe it's because it's something that I have trained myself for
Right.
many years um to not do, right? Like would I maybe um I would so what I do is I do my best to prepare for the being hungry where everything that I could possibly reach for at home is
Yep.
something that I've approved already. Even if I were to have a ton of it, right? So
Right.
like if I ate, 4 servings of siete chips when I got home, okay. I've already
Right.
considered it. Is it great? No, but is it fine? Sure. Like All right, is it the best? So, but also I would also try to have something that I prepared that was healthy, right? Like,
Right,
because if I did have like my chicken and Brussels and or like sweet potato, whatever, or something, whatever it is, something that I like, or even sushi. If I like put sushi in the fridge and I was like, oh,
right,
well, maybe I'll have sushi later, I would eat that. Like, I would
okay,
come home and eat what I had planned.
right,
Um, Also because I've done so much work to be neutral around food, right? And not really like lose myself in those decisions.
right,
I also don't drink to the point where I like get
yeah,
to the place where I just like eat whatever, you
right,
know? So I'm going to the happy hour. I'll probably get a Aperol spritz
okay,
or something like that, right?
right,
Or like maybe it's kilo soda. I'll probably have someone say want another round, and at that point I'll say, "What's the plan? Are we
right.
going to go to dinner after this?" Because I'm a 2 to 2.5 drink person max.
Me too. Yeah,
So it's like if we are going to dinner, I know I'm probably going to want a glass of wine or something at dinner. So at
hmm,
that point, I'll be like, no, I'm not having another drink here.
right, got it. Yep.
Right. And I'm
Hmm.
just here for the friends and for the fun and for the birthday. And I'll give me, I'll get a sparkling water with lemon, right?
Right.
Or nothing.
Hmm.
So it's really just like keeping your eye on the boundaries and on the um the self. I feel like discipline's such a hard word, but like this the
The
self
regulating,
yeah, like your anchors, like
yeah,
the commitments, your self commitments. Like to your point earlier, like I am the only one that can hold myself to my commitments. It's
exactly.
nobody else's job. Do I always hold myself to my commitments? Like am I like you know no, but 98% of the times I hold myself to my commitments. Yes.
Yeah,
And it's one of the reasons why I think look the way I do, I like feel the way I do, I show up the way I do because really 98% of the time I do show up to the commitments, and because I've done it so long, it doesn't feel hard anymore that
right.
much.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm cutting us off
Okay,
because we could literally talk
like
for
2 days.
hours, days. But like honestly, this was so fun.
Awesome.
Um, I know this was so fun. Anything you have that you want to promote, that you want people to look out for you? I know that you have a book. Your book is called Party on the Moon,
It is. Yeah.
and that you've officially become a bi-coastal company and you work globally.
Yes.
So, can you talk a little bit about the kind of events that you
Yeah,
do?
we're doing some really cool stuff. We basically do every kind of event, but we also consult in all different kinds of art direction and creative direction. So we just helped design Madonna's world tour, the staging.
What?
Yeah, so we will do things like that, but then we'll do a wedding. Obviously, we'll do a bar bat mitzvah, but then we'll do a huge corporate retreat for Google. So we're actually being really diverse, and that's kind of my goal right now. Since I've done it all, and I've been in business for so long, I think diversity of creativity is kind of my goal at the moment, just to keep me happy,
I
and
love it.
stimulated. Yeah,
Name of your company and your Instagram handle.
sure. My company is called Jes Gordon / Proper Fun, and Proper Fun came about when I was very young, and I was hanging out with a really famous fashion designer who was a good friend of mine. His name was Alexander McQueen, and we were in London, and I was producing one of my first events. I think I was like 19 in London, and we were watching, and this beautiful woman came across the floor, and she pulled her hair back and she threw up in a plant and like wiped her mouth, went back to the party, and he turned to me and he goes, well, isn't she having proper fun? And so the DBA of my company is Proper Fun, so it's
I
Jes Gordon Proper Fun.
I've never heard that story before, and I freaking
Great,
love
right?
that story. I also love anything that sounds sort of British, like proper fun.
Proper Fun, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my Insta is just Jes Gordon. We do have another Insta now that's called Proper Fun Events. It's my sister Insta. And I'm on Twitter, Proper Fun, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. I'm on all of it.
Oh man. Oh my God, Jess, this was amazing. This
It was
was so
awesome.
much fun.
Pleasure meeting
And
you.
uh thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
For all of you listening today, I hope you got through this whole episode because it was so, so good. I think this was our longest episode yet, but I just want to thank you all so much for joining me today. And if this episode resonated with you, please join me again next week with another new episode about emotional eating so you can fall in love with eating, start losing weight, and keep it off with sustainable strategies and lasting change. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those who may benefit from this empowering knowledge. I have lots of free resources on my website to support you on your journey to loving food, losing weight, feeling amazing in your body, and your best self. Just go to www.bewellbyak.com. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.